Within the watch enthusiast community, I feel that a small number of popular brands get the most amount of attention, especially in the luxury segment of the market. I think this is a shame too, because there are a ton of smaller brands that are hidden gems many people have not even heard of. These brands nearly always do something better or more unique than the industry giants, and usually for a more affordable price too. Today, I wanted to share with you a few watches from 3 different luxury micro brands that you probably have never heard of, why you should know about them, and perhaps to add some considerations to your next watch purchase. Founded in 2018 and based in Paris, France, Trelobe is a microbrand centered around watches that display the time without any hands that would be found on a traditional watch. Translating to 3 lobes, all of the designs utilize separate rings for hours, minutes, and seconds. The Nuit Fantastique is Trelobe's second and probably most affordable collection, and in my opinion, embodies the aesthetic of the brand perfectly. The 3-lobe design philosophy is clean and easy to read, with a significant amount of negative space on the right side of the dial. The titanium case comes in 38.5 and 40.5 millimeters, and is a fairly simple but refined design with the subtle faceted faces and traditional style lugs extending out of the case band. What makes this watch stand out is Trelobe's focus on textures and finishing, both on the dial and movement. The Nuit Fantastique comes in a variety of dial colors and finishing styles, all including guilloche and sandblasted patterns, mixed in with brushed ring edges beveled to a mirror finish. Combined together, you certainly get a sense of refinement and attention to detail. Flipping the watch over, the movement is fully displayed. Equipped with a micro rotor and textured similar to the dial with electroplating to give a dark finish, it reminds me of more established high-end luxury brands with a modern watchmaking aesthetic, such as Chapek. The eccentric movement was developed exclusively for the brand, and is a level of finishing higher than what you'd expect for the price bracket this watch is in. Another watch using the eccentric caliber is the Une Folle Journée, translated to a crazy day, and this watch is certainly crazy. With a thickness of nearly 18 millimeters, this watch has an incredibly domed sapphire crystal that encompasses a skeletonized dial with the 3 time-telling rings. This time though, the rings are tiered vertically in the watch, giving them a 3-dimensional and floating look. Altogether, this gives a watch a UFO aesthetic. Of course, because this contains the same movement, the same sandblasted frosted finishing is present on the bottom of the movement's main plate and in view because of the skeleton dial. I don't know about the actual practicality of wearing a watch like this, but the watchmaking prowess is certainly interesting, at least enough for it to be nominated for a GPHG award in 2022. The brand's newest watch is definitely their sportiest design yet, essentially being a stainless steel Nuit Fantastique on an integrated bracelet with a coin-edge bezel. What sets the Trente-Deux apart though is that it marks Trelobe's foray into in-house movements. The X Nilo caliber was designed, machined, finished, and assembled entirely in-house by Trelobe in their workshop in Paris. The case design this time around is different too, and not just because it has an integrated bracelet. The finishing on the case and bracelet seems to be a step above the Nuit Fantastique, and it better be given that it's nearly double the price. The dial remains mostly the same, with a sunburst pattern in exchange for the sandblasted texture. The movement has dropped the dark electroplated aesthetic and micro rotor as well, in exchange for a skeletonized rotor. Impressively, it still manages to sit around 10mm thick and 39.5mm in diameter, so this one is probably a lot more wearable than the previous watch. Founded in 2012, Barons is another relatively new microbrand that specializes in a design language that goes even further beyond contemporary styles into a futuristic and space-centric aesthetic, not dissimilar to high horology brands such as Jacob & Co., Constantin Schaken, or even Richard Mille. What's unexpected about this brand, given the quality, complexity, and design philosophy they go by, is that Barons is based out of Shenzhen, China. That isn't to say that Chinese watch manufacturers are not quality, as many quality mid-tier luxury brands definitely have parts that are made in China. But when someone thinks of a watch brand based out of China, I'd say more often than not that they think of brands such as Saint Martin or homage brands that are focused entirely in the budget sector of the watch market. Barons is a genuine luxury brand though, with a large catalog of unconventional watches that specialize in unique feats of watchmaking. The Ultralight 20 grams is a watch that displays the level of innovation I'm talking about. Weighing in at a little more than 3 US quarters, this watch probably ranks among one of the lightest on Earth and certainly the most affordable at this weight as well. Everything about this watch is custom, from the in-house movement, the unconventional time display, to the unique case design. Besides the weight, of course the design element of this watch that catches the eye is the dial, or should I say, the lack thereof. The movement of this watch is entirely on display to the front, and it is certainly complex to look at. Beyond just being flat out cool, the movement is technically impressive as well, utilizing a double retrograde time-telling mechanism and a power reserve in the upper corner. The case on this watch is wild as well, with a slightly curved profile similar to what you'd find on a Cartier Santos. The case for the ultralight is an astounding 5mm thick though, and is asymmetric in design. I'm unsure how the strap is on this model, but I'm sure it's comfortable. How could it not be when you're wearing essentially nothing at all? If the Ultralight 20 was a good representation of Baron's future aesthetic, the Perigee is an equal representation of their space-centric designs. This watch is something you would expect to see out of a brand such as Jacob & Co. with a high six-figure price tag, and the fact that Barons can even pull off this concept, let alone at the price it's being offered at, is almost unbelievable. Now don't get me wrong, 13 grand for a concept watch from a Chinese microbrand is an incredibly tall ask, but for what you're getting, it's practically a bargain. So what is the Perigee? In short, it's a three-dimensional 24-hour and moon phase display that's also unconventionally telling the time. The dial contains a miniature 3D Earth that is slowly revolving at a 24-hour real-time rate, that is orbited by a miniature 3D moon that completes an orbit in 27 days in real time. The current hours are displayed using a ruby-bearing micro chain, and the minutes are of course retrograde just to top it all off. Yeah, this watch comes in at nearly 17mm thick, but I'm not sure what else you would expect from a watch that does what this one does. You can say a lot about the designs coming out of Barons, but you can't tell me that many of these designs aren't just flat out cool. Is the time easy to read? No. Do I really care? Not really. This watch is an insane feat of watchmaking prowess, and I would be seeking to own one day if I didn't already have another astronomical display watch on my grail list. Orage is a Swiss-based microbrand that released the first product line in 2015 through Kickstarter. Where other luxury microbrands excel in having a signature style or developing unique complications, Orage specializes in providing a great value proposition for the feature-packed watches they create and for their great conceptual innovation. When it comes to construction and materials, Orage is probably most well known for their usage of unique metals and the quality of finishing you get at the price point. Out of all the brands on this list, Orage is the one I've personally considered purchasing from the most. To me, the Super C GMT is a watch with so much value packed into its price, especially if you can find one on the secondary market for significantly less than new. This watch has a true GMT complication, 24-hour day-night indicator, power reserve and big date, unidirectional dive bezel, with 200 meters of water resistance, all inside a case that is under 10mm thick. I praised the Trentidoux earlier for being an integrated bracelet watch coming in at around 10mm thick, and the Super C GMT is thinner, with all of those complications, and 4 times the depth and water resistance, for around a third the price. Did I mention that the bracelet on this watch comes with a class-leading micro-adjustment clasp, and a significant amount of taper to increase comfort as well? All this is without talking about the movement either, which in my opinion may be the best finished movement I've ever seen at this price. The movement boasts a gold-plated tungsten micro-rotor that allows for the sub-10mm thickness, with hand-finished Geneva striping, frosted black gold bridges and plates with that dark color you'd associate with contemporary high-end luxury brands. The movement is also COSC certified with 72 hours of power reserve, but you could go on and on with specifications. Suffice to say, this is a feature-packed watch that maintains a distinct aesthetic with an amazing value proposition. I could go on about how beautiful the movement is on these watches, so much so that I believe the movement is more aesthetically pleasing than the actual dial of the watch. I've even heard others say that they wish the movement could be in view while on your wrist, and that it's a shame to be obscured while wearing it. Orage seems to agree too, because with the Revolution 3, they did exactly that. Now this watch won't be for everyone, and I think that the premise sounds a bit like an April Fool's joke by the brand, but they really have created a watch that is essentially upside down, with the dial and hands literally being on the underside of the watch with the movement facing out. The blue finishing on the movement is really something else too. I'm unsure if I've ever seen a movement finished like this. Where this watch really shines though is not through the strange layout, but the innovation they've developed alongside it. To my knowledge, the Revolution 3 is the only mechanical watch in the market that can be regulated without ever opening the watch up. Orage have developed a movement and accompanying tool that can be used to regulate the watch in tenth of a second increments externally. This allows you to regulate your own watch easily, without ever having to go to a watchmaker. Everyone could achieve the holy 0 seconds per day regulation with just a little bit of button pressing. The watch and everything else about it aside, This is true innovation we don't often see in the industry. I really do believe that this could be a significant development in watchmaking for the future and could shape how we think about watch servicing, regulation, and watchmaking as a whole. Perhaps it doesn't catch on or is a gimmick. Regardless, it's extremely impressive to do as a small brand at the price point they're asking. Orage has several other collections that are worth considering, but among them, I think the Lensman 2 stands out as a fun conceptual watch in the spirit of the microbrand philosophy. I don't think there's another hobby outside of watch collecting that is shared more in the watch enthusiast community than photography. Both interests really go together. You get a shiny new watch, and you want to take a shiny new picture to show it off. This is of course where the Lensman 2 comes in, a conceptual watch dedicated to photography and dialing in the settings for your camera based on the conditions you're in. Using the bidirectional bezel, you can use it as an exposure calculator that helps you calculate the optimal shutter speed and aperture. This watch gives me conceptual cues from the Brew Metric collection from Brew watches, and design cues from the Breitling Navitimer's slide rule bezel that you can use as a calculator as well. Of course, the bezel calculator isn't necessary, and you probably wouldn't need to use it much regardless. But what in the world of luxury watches is necessary? Wear a $20 Casio F91W and you probably get about just as much usefulness. Inside the watch is the same K2 movement as the Super C GMT, so you'll have all the same finishing and complications in this one too, without the date though it seems. What this watch is though, is fun, unique, and a nice nod to the interest many watch collectors have. From this video and moving forward, I'll be including a segment called Obscure Reference at the end of every video that's about a mystery watch you probably never heard of that relates to the video subject in some way. Today's Obscure Reference comes from another microbrand you probably never heard of before today, Sarpaneva. I won't go into too much detail about the brand now, as I'll probably discuss Sarpaneva in more detail in a future video, but Sarpaneva is a Finnish microbrand that creates funky watches, typically including their iconic moon face. The Northern Lights collection is one such watch, essentially being a pseudo-skeletonized moonface watch that utilizes the faces 3 times throughout the watch. This specific model comes with a green radially brushed sunburst dial, a distinctive case style unique to the brand, and a green skeletonized rotor on the movement. Of course, I've skipped over the obvious detail here though. The case and strap buckle are meticulously hand engraved with incredible detail. This watch is beautiful, strange, and one of a kind. And I mean that literally, as this specific piece is a one of one and is completely unique. I'm not sure if I'd ever want to own a watch as gaudy as this, but you can't help but appreciate the craftsmanship that went into it. You're in luck if you're interested though, as it seems to be up for sale once again on Chrono24, and for a pretty penny I might add. Let me know in the comments what you think of these brands. Have any of you heard of them before, or considered any of their watches to add to your collection in the past? Let me know as well if there's any watches or brands you'd like for me to cover in the future. Thank you for taking the time to watch.